Hello, thank you for joining us here today at TotalMD to take another look at setting up the system. To do setup, all you do is go to setup, and under accounting setup is where we're going to go today to set up insurance plans. We'll click on enter insurance plans, and you'll see that I have several plans already entered in here. To edit them, all you do is double click on them or click on them and highlight them blue and click edit insurance plan. You can also come in and delete them if they have not been used. If they have been used, they will be tied to records in the system and it won't allow you to delete them. Once you're ready to add a new insurance plan, you click New Insurance Plan. The system will assign a code for you. It consists of the first three letters of the payer name and a 2-digit number afterwards, starting with 00. We're going to add a payer this morning. And they actually have a street address, so we're going to add that. And when you're adding suite numbers or apartment numbers in the system, you don't want to use the pound sign. That can mess up ANSI if you're using ANSI, so you want to use suite or unit or something like that on the second line, not additionally onto this first street line. And you do want to add the last 4 digits of the zip code, as that's important in ANSI. And then if you've got a phone number for your payer, you can add that as well. And then on the right hand side, you'll want to add a group name if it has one. If you have a group number that is generic, you'll add it here. Otherwise, you'll add it within the patient's record itself. If this is a local plan, you can put yes. You can assign a fee schedule to it. This is a type of Medicaid, so we're going to assign the Medicaid fee schedule to it. And I do have a payer ID for this payer. When you're assigning payer IDs, you'll need to make sure with your clearinghouse what they're using for a payer ID, and if their eligibility ID is the same. If you're doing real-time eligibility check, that will need to be filled out in here as well. The insurance type you can choose here as well. And timely filing, you want to put in how many days you've got out there to file it. That will help you when you're actually doing your filing. The category is something you can assign to it yourself if you have categories. If you're checking eligibility, you'll want to check that box. And if you're sending electronic claims, it's very important that you click this box, otherwise it will not show up as an electronic payer. In the module, you will choose which clearinghouse you're using. We're going to use Practice Insight, as that's our clearinghouse. In SBR 05, you can add a Medicare or a Medicaid program if you wish. That's not necessary, and don't add it unless you know exactly what it should be. SBR 09 can be added if it's a PPO, a POS, something that you know what it is. But again, do not add it unless you know exactly what you're doing, because it can cause issues with the program. Under the middle section here, this is what goes onto your actual 1500. The box 33 typically is practice information if you're billing for a practice with rendering providers. If you're billing for a provider themselves, then that would be the provider information. Box 24J is your rendering provider, so you would want to have the individual NPI in that box. The tax ID number, of course, you'll want to use either the tax ID or the social, depending on what you're using for that particular provider. In box 25, the TIN number corresponds with box 33, so you need to make sure those two match. Box 33A is the NPI for the group, if you're using a group, or if it is an individual, you use the individual NPI. The ICD-10, of course, you'll want to have that selected. And then for the base code, in one of our other videos, I showed you where you can add different code sets. Usually you'll use your base code set, the same with the procedure codes. If you're setting up a payer for cash pay, you'll want to click this Do Not Bill Insurance Companies so that you don't accidentally send this to an insurance company. And if this is something that you would not bill a patient, you can click Do Not Bill Patient. This default payment code would be something that you would choose if you are going to receive all electronic payments. And if you are receiving some other sort of payment for this payer, you would go ahead and add that as well. So let's say Medicaid is always sending us electronic, we'll choose electronic, but if they were sending us paper checks, you would want to choose paper check. You can also create different types of these notes in here in the system. That was covered in another video as well. So that way you know what type of payment you're receiving from this payer. These other adjustment codes show up when you're doing your AR, when you're entering an ERA or an EOB. So we'll just leave those the way they are. We're going to go under to contract allowed. However, this will give us a message that says you have to save it first, so we'll tell it yes. Under here, you can put in your contract allowed amounts if you wish. It's not necessary to do so, but again, this will populate into the AR section when you're working in there. If there is a PIN needed for this particular payer, you'll want to add it here. We don't see PINs very often anymore, but sometimes older payers like Blue Cross Blue Shield will still require them. Once you've made all your changes, you simply click Save Changes to the left, and you now have a new type of insurance in your system. If you have questions about setting up payers in TotalMD or any other questions, please give us a call, 800-613-7597. Option 2 is support. Option 3 is training. We would be very happy to help you out.